then let's flash forward to the Ghana trip. You're coming back, and then how did you start it? The Rhythm Traders.
Gotcha. You want the 5-minute version, the 10-minute version, the hour-long version?
I want the version, the Brad version.
Alrighty. Yeah. Well, we've talked about some of it. So I'm doing all these like mini apprenticeships all over Ghana. And so I stumbled into this village, the same one we were just talking about, Okurase. And I went to the carvers, and believe me, this is going to circle back because this directly is sort of how I started Rhythm Traders. Went to the carvers and I approached them about learning their trade from them. So I said, hey, I'm interested in learning how to carve drums. Do you think I could, stay here and learn? They were baffled. Like, okay, first, like, why would someone want to, like, someone who comes from a country with skyscrapers and Cadillacs and software companies, why would they come to a village anyway and then want to learn something like drum making? Mm-hmm. So I had to explain myself that yes, I come from America, which has really well-known popular culture, and we have big businesses and we have tall buildings, but when you build a building, the guy who designs it, the architect, he doesn't know how to install windows, and the guy who installs the windows doesn't know anything about the HVAC, and then the HVAC guys doesn't know how to install an elevator, and then none of those guys know how to market the property to get tenants in there. And so I explained that although we have businesses that are successful and wealthy in America, what I like about what you are doing is you control the whole process from start to finish. Every one of you carvers know how to cut down the tree, hollow it out, carve the inside, carve the outside, go hunting for an antelope, put the antelope skin on, and then play it. And so I explained that that's something that we don't have in America because we have this assembly line structure, and yet in Ghana, it was so refreshing to see how things were made start to finish and how workers had complete control over that process. So, that was all interesting to them, but it boiled down to finances. And so we struck a deal finally. They asked me, they said, okay, well, that sounds reasonable. So our little outdoor workshop here, we don't have any music, and we have a boombox, but our batteries keep on running out. So if you can go back to Accra, buy us a truck battery, you got yourself a deal. So I went back to Accra, bought a used truck battery for about $75, came back to the village and commenced my apprenticeship. So stayed there for a couple months, learned the entire process, carved drums myself. There were funerals. I would play drums for the funeral, and towards the end of that 2 months of my being there, it was sort of a sped up version because usually in apprenticeship, when you are learning something like drumming or even farming or driving a taxi or something like that, it takes a couple years.
Right.
So I told them that it was about time and I had to move on. So they went to the blacksmith and ordered up a set of tools, and then they called the whole village and had a ceremony, and they presented me with my tools. And it was a ritual. We sacrificed the chicken and we poured libations and we said prayers to ancestors that the tools wouldn't hurt me and that my business would be successful and whatnot, and they presented me with these tools and declared that I was now a drum carver.
Yeah.
And then, the whole village is there, all the other master carvers, and they asked me, so Brad, now that you've learned this, you're going to go back to America and carve drums, right? And I didn't know what to say, because on the one hand, it had been an academic exercise, but on the other hand, it had meant so much to me in my life. But we place a premium on labor in America, and it's very expensive. And like to carve one of these drums, whether it's a Pon logo drum or a djembe or something, just the carving takes 40 or 50 hours. And then you have to get rings and skins, and you have to sew the skins on, and so the whole process takes a long time. So I knew they wouldn't understand that. So I turned to them and I said, thank you everybody for this valuable experience. You've taught me so much, but I don't know if I can support myself if I am carving drums in America. And then they all got really sad and they're like, oh, you mean if you're carving drums, you won't be able to buy meat? And I said, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I would be able to buy meat. But I said, I'm just a regular guy. And I was planning to go back to school. And so they all looked kind of upset because I was kind of one of them, and I was kind of, they were expecting me to be their ambassador. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, oh, so the masters kind of huddled, talked amongst themselves, and then they presented me with an offer. They're like, so, okay, we understand that it may not make sense for you to carve drums in America, but why don't we send you drums and then you can sell them for us? Mm-hmm. And then I kind of smirked and it was quiet. There was like a long awkward gap. And I said, guys, again, like I've had such a valuable experience, but I studied social sciences, for God's sake, and I haven't taken a single business class. And I come from a family of teachers and social workers, and I don't know the first thing about business. I don't think I could market your drums. I don't think I would be successful. They looked visibly upset, talked amongst themselves again, and then they made me the offer that I could not refuse. They said, Brad, we understand. We would like to send you 12 drums at our expense, and we'd like you to take them to America and try to sell them. If you're successful, send us half of the money back, and we'll send you 12 more. And if you're not successful, we can all smile at the end of the day because at least we know we tried. Mm-hmm. I couldn't refuse. And that was the birth of Rhythm Traders. Mm-hmm. Because they gave me the 12 drums. I took them to the post office. I mailed them to myself, opened up a tiny little storefront at West Burnside over by Powell's Book. It was a little teeny thing. And I basically had just my own little imports. So I had my 12 drums, some incense, mm-hmm. A couple dashikis, and some like African bags. And I figured, I would do my best, that I owed it to these guys to be an ambassador for their craft, and I owed it to them to at least try. And then what happened completely surprised me. I had enormous support. We started having classes. I started diversifying, and even though it started with the Ghanaian drums that I imported myself, pretty soon it's darbukas. And then I had sabar drums and djembes, and then I got my first set of bongos. And I kind of expanded from there. So, even when I started that little teeny storefront, and it was the birth of Rhythm Traders, even then I thought, here's the scoop, Brad. You're going to do this for 2 years, and then everyone in Portland who needs a drum is going to have it. They won't need you anymore. You won't be relevant. And then you can go to graduate school and study what you were going to study. And this would be like a little super positive hiccup along the road, but just part of the process. And then here we are 27 years later. It's expanded, and that little seed that was planted in Okurase in the eastern region of Ghana has completely changed and informed my life.
So, are you still planning on going back to graduate school, or is that's run its this course?
I'm 51 now, so there's no chance of that. So that's an interesting point though, because there's two ways to gain credibility when you're studying culture. And one is to have a PhD behind your name. So you're like, Joe Schmo, PhD, cultural anthropologist. And you can earn a certain amount of respect. But the other way is from experience. Mm-hmm. So, I lived in Ghana for a year when I was 24, doing all these apprenticeships. Came back, started my store, went to Dakar and met carvers and imported drums. Went to Guinea, studied there with Mamadi Keita and imported drums. Went to Turkey and visited the cymbal foundries and imported cymbals. Went to Cuba and studied with the Cuban masters. So in a way, I'm doing what I always wanted to do. I'm traveling. I'm learning about culture, But I think I'm actually getting deeper inside the culture than I would have if I had those 3 letters behind my name, because I think people trust me just as a regular drummer.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's been the greatest passport. And one way to look at it is what started Rhythm Traders was my interest in culture and understanding people and communicating and breaking down barriers. And then I started the drum store as a means to facilitate that. And so in a way, it's been a means to the end in that Rhythm Traders is a conduit to allow me to do what I really want to do and who I really am, which is to learn about the world and make the world a better place. And so by selling congas and bongos and cajones, drum sets and snare drums and cymbals, I've actually been able to do that.
I want to play, I need to play, I love my drums, it's all I know, hey, let me blow, drum is my thing, God gave it to me, you can't take it away from me.